So within communication studies, I specialize in organizational communication. And I'm also considered an expert in quantitative methods. So sometimes people will seek to collaborate with me because of my methodological background. And so I might be involved in projects that are not necessarily organizationally focused, but because I'm bringing a methodological expertise to the project. And sometimes I also do projects just because of things that I enjoy. So right now I'm working on a project which is actually incidentally on soccer. We're collecting data on soccer teams' performance at FIFA World Cup. We've been collecting data from the World Cup in 2010, 2014, 2018, and we're trying to get the FIFA data from 2022. And we're trying to examine some of the factors, structural and compositional. When I say compositional, is what kind of player, make up the teams, and does the type of player, the caliber of player that make up the team that the team is composed of. How does that predict, team performance? And then we also want to see how the organization of the ball sharing on the pitch. So we will examine passes, passing network, passing sequences, and so on. And we want to see, which one of those two main factors, along with other things that we control for, is the best predictor of soccer team performance in terms of match won, goal scored, and a number of other performance metrics. We're still in the process of doing it. We haven't completed, and I'm doing it with a friend of mine. We often bet about soccer. He's a big Manchester City fan.
That's terrible. I feel bad for him.
So, but yeah, we do a number of wagers, occasionally Champions League, different championships. And so one day we were just at a bar and said, you know what? We could really examine some of these things like structural characteristics of performing teams and so on. And it just started as a bar conversation, and then it was like, hey, we could actually do that, because at the time I wasn't sure, like, where would we get the data, or how would we get the data to do that? And he had this idea that there's the FIFA thing, they publish. I wasn't aware of that FIFA actually publishes a number of metrics like passes, a number of different metric passes, free kicks, and all kinds of different things that we could definitely use, to do our study. So right now we've collected data from 3 World Cups, and we just need the data from this 4th World Cup. 2032 in Qatar. So hopefully next year we'll have a publication,
That's pretty cool. That's a lot of information, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that, again, there are different kinds of research I've been involved in, but most of my research is concerns organizations and the role of communication in organizing.
Do you think the collapse of Spain was due to ego, or maybe a sense of comfortability, that they felt like they were already dominant, so they got comfortable?
There is a bit of that, comfortability. I would say inertia, meaning there is often this belief that, why change something that has worked in the past, If something has worked in the past, why would you want to change it? In French, we say, on ne change pas l'équipe qui gagne. So you don't change the winning team, or you never change the winning formula. So if a formula has helped you win in the past, why mess up a good thing, basically? Keep doing the same thing. Unfortunately, soccer evolves. People study you, people study whoever is the winner, and they start attacking the flaws that they see in your system. And so Spain has continued to apply that tiki-taka conservation of the ball and everything, but they don't do anything with that ball.
And they can't score.
They don't score.
Yeah.
They got away with being able to play without a true number 9 and all that, and that was like a trademark for a while. But it became very sterile, after a while, because people started to find a way to counter that, So it was innovative and great and performing at a certain point, but you need to consistently adapt. You need to refresh, renew, and adapt to the new challenges. So that's perhaps what they haven't done or haven't done as well. So,
and that practice transitions over to entrepreneurship, businesses, nonprofit organizations, correct?
Exactly. You constantly have to monitor your environment, in order to evolve. Human beings, organizations, we evolve or we perish.
That's true. That's a fact.
We adapt or we perish. So adapt to the new environment, to the new rules, to the new ways that people are playing. I see some of the same things with Guardiola, won with Barcelona, the Champions League, but never won it again ever since he left, despite having some great teams. And again, it's like, can you keep the same management style, that led you to win with the Barcelona teams? And is it necessarily going to translate every year? And I'm not sure. From what we've seen, the winning recipe, the winning formulas have changed over the years, so something to keep in mind,
And that makes sense. I like to see it like this, that you should always have a foundation, keep that culture, keep the tradition, but keep innovating it though as well.
It's identify what you do best, refine it, but you should also explore. You should continue to scan the environment to say, what are the new threats? What are the new opportunities? In what ways can you change? Can you tweaks? Because as you see that soccer is evolving, soccer is changing, maybe people are starting to figure us out. We're becoming more predictable, and people have found more effective ways of countering us. The question is, now that you know that, what do you do? Yeah, hey, if you do not reinvent yourself, if you do not adapt, this is what happens, because there are smart coaches all over the place, and 100%. They study. That's what a smart coach, that's what a great organization does. They examine the environment, how can we secure competitive advantage over, other people, other organizations in our field. We see that this team is doing that and they're having such great success. We're going to study and we're going to think about ways that we can counter that, so people are constantly doing it, so, and you need to be aware of that. You need to also invest in counterintelligence to see what other folks are doing, to take the top spot.
Because of the turnover, correct?
Yeah. The turnover is what I was interested in examining, so the IT field, when I was conducting that study, and maybe even to some extent today, had been plagued a lot by issues of turnovers, people being hired and consistently quitting to move to other organizations. And so I was reflecting on the whys and how that challenge could be tackled, meaningfully. And one of my propositions there, what I focused the study on was to examine the impact of two very powerful communicative practices, employee work participation, the communicative empowerment of workers beyond just decision making, like creating an organization or an organizational environment where people are encouraged to voice their opinion, to provide ideas, to make that into a normal thing, that you're here, you were hired here because we trust you, we believe that you're good at what you do. And one of the goals of an organization, especially a knowledge organization, is to empower their workers, to dedicate ourselves to them, to their growth, because we believe that when they grow in knowledge, we benefit from that knowledge. We need the knowledge that they bring, and that knowledge is what's going to help us be successful. So communicatively empowering the workers, so they feel like they're at home. This is their, the organization is a constant production, so this is their production, it's theirs too, so they feel like they own it in some ways, communicatively. And then internal communication adequacy, I believe that's what it was.
I see.
It's been
yes.
a while since I
have it right here. I see
internal communication adequacy. This is simply the quality of communication. Do employees, do these IT workers feel like they're getting adequate information from their organization? When we talk about adequate organization, do they get clear information? Is it complete? Is it timely? Is it useful? If I have to be able to do my job effectively, if I have to successfully handle challenges within the organization, if I have to be properly integrated, if I have to be properly supported to be successful at doing my job, I need adequate information. Information is key to success.
Absolutely.
If you don't have the right information, if you don't have useful information, if it's always late, it's not timely, if it's not clear, you are marred into ambiguous, like, I don't know what these people expect from me. Like, one time I'm being told X and then the other time it's Y, or I'm being given some instructions but it's not clear. I'm not clear on what to do. So we want to remove that kind of ambiguity, and so providing people adequate information is a way not only of respecting them, but of giving them the tools for their success and therefore the success of the organization. So we're doing them and us a favor by providing them adequate information, for them to succeed. So I was looking at those two communicative practices, so internal communication adequacy and employee work participation, and the impact that they have on turnover intention. But on turnover intention specifically, that's the main dependent variable that I had in the study, the main outcome, to not be too jargonic. And I also wanted to see what impact those two practices had in terms of creating a bond, organizational identification, creating a bond, like making people feel like they have a sense of belonging, belongingness
Absolutely.
into the organization, feel one with the organization, so they take on the concerns, the problems, and when this organization wins, I win, and vice versa. So there are sometimes people feel like that. Sometimes we call them company men, like when you criticize the organization, they feel so bad that, hey, it wasn't you. But no, they feel that because they have become, or they feel one with that workplace. So when you attack us, you attack
everybody.
Me. Yeah. So I feel not everybody feels that way necessarily. And so I wanted to see how those two communicative practices impacted the probability of people feeling that way, that sense of oneness with the organization, and also their turnover intentions. Basically, that was the goal of the study, just to put it in a nutshell.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. I would say when you're, building a business, or, you have to have a foundation where you have your culture ready, you have your pillars, your core values, which I believe that what needs to be instilled is one, communication, teamwork, ownership. I think those three are the most important things because, when you give somebody that ownership, it builds them confidence.
Yes, and that's true. That's true, and that's something that a lot of people, sometimes they hire folks and they don't trust them. They hide information from them and everything. And again, I want the people who listen who may be feeling like, well, maybe you haven't seen the folks that we're working with and so on. Okay, then you might have a different problem, because if you're hiring people that you don't trust and you believe are incompetent, then you're doing a terrible job hiring.
Absolutely.
So that's another thing I want to get that out of the way, that if you're doing a poor job hiring, then that's something that you need to fix. But when you have hired people that you believe are competent, are expert in their domain, as was the case in my context in this IT, you have the startup or you have a company where people come, great resume, great record of achievement and so on. Your organization depends on their success, and you should do everything to invest in their professional growth, because when they are in the best conditions, when they feel that their organization cares about them, gives them the tools to succeed, they want to repay that, and that's where we come in with the idea of the social exchange,
Yes.
So I feel an obligation to repay because this organization has been so good to me, It respects me, it values me, values my opinion, values my voice, values my work, encourages me, and so on. And I feel an obligation. I feel respected, and I feel an obligation to die for the cause. Like, I want this organization to be successful, and I want to be committed. I developed that bond. So that's really the thing, that was one of the main takeaways there. It's essentially a call to managers and organizational leaders, to empower their
team,
their
their
employees.
staff.
Yeah, essentially. And if you believe, again, I want to be clear, if you believe that you're surrounded by incompetent people, or if you believe that you're surrounded by people that are not to be trusted, then that's a bit on you, because that means that you need to switch how you hire people. They should not be part of the team to begin with.
And that creates those barriers, right?
Yeah.
That distrust, those barriers.
Exactly. When employees feel like they're not trusted, they're not valued, they're not respected, they're treated like people that are idiots, it creates a sense of resentment, and oftentimes they start looking, elsewhere, depending on the alternatives that they have access to, and so sometimes people quit. You quit, like, the salary was great. It's like, yeah, but I can get the same salary elsewhere, but I don't have to put up with this kind of toxic culture or whatever. So, yeah. And you start seeing that turnover, people go from one organization to the next, especially when there are these opportunities. But sometimes people will stay put in a toxic organization because sometimes they have nowhere else to go. The same way that in a romantic relationship, sometimes people feel trapped in a toxic relationship, but they feel like, I have nowhere else to go, or what am I going to do if I quit? Like, who's going to pay for my living expenses or something? So one of the things that sometimes abusers do is to create that sense of dependency, because they don't ever want you to leave.
But they also do that to themselves, because I believe that you can figure it out. It's going to be tough at first, but like any journey in life, everything's going to be tough. There's going to be pain, difficulty, but that's the process of getting better. Is getting out of that detachment, because now you're attached because you feel like you're obligated in a toxic relationship, work environment, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And you're just digging yourself in a hole, and you're losing confidence. And I say that through experience. Mm-hmm. I've dealt with that before.
Yeah, that's why we say that abusers, whether in the workplace, whether they're bullies and everything, one of the first thing is they have to kill your confidence, because or your self-esteem, when you think highly of yourself and you're like, I don't deserve this, then you feel like, I I could live. You value yourself that much.
100%.
But one of the first things that, a bully or an abuser, is going to do is to try to kill that. Well, where are you going to go? Who's going to do this for you? Blah, 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 blah. You're nothing. You'll go over there. What's this? Like, they try to take that away,
To control and manipulate you.
Yeah, to control and manipulate you, to keep you there. And that's why oftentimes when we say to folk, when you see that you have a friend who's in that kind of relationship, building their self-esteem, but also helping them come up with alternatives is very important, because they need to see a way out. If it's just, oh yeah, you just need to quit or you just need to leave, like these type of advice have very limited value, for people in that kind of position. It's about helping them, mentoring them, facing the challenges that are to come, because there's a sense of fear that what am I going to be without this person or without this organization? I don't have any options, or, well, it's the way it is. Then no, it's not. And here I need to show you examples. So a bit of hand holding, support, nurturing, these things are more effective at helping people quit these abusive, toxic relationships than simply berating them. Oh, why can't you just quit? Or why didn't you just quit? It's not that simple, for a lot of people who are in these kind of position, So
absolutely, but I would also to add is, one, to keep it real, but two is storytelling. Like, hey, if you're going through this, hear what this person is saying, because I believe sometimes at the end of the day, when you're hearing a story from somebody that has gone through it worse, and you've seen that they found the light and they made it out, that should already give you that inspiration to, okay, if that person can do it, I can do it. And that's why I think storytelling is very important.
Yeah, story becomes important, and beyond the story, it's important to convince the other person, because not every story will necessarily translate perfectly to every case study or situation. Maybe that person left a relationship. Maybe they didn't have kids, but you're in a relationship where you have 4, you don't work. So people need to be able, like, empowering them, listening how they feel. So keeping it real, it's okay, as long as there's some type of empathy and compassion attached to that. Yeah. What we try to get people away from is the berating, the criticism. The person is already feeling low. And so, yes, tough love has its advocates, and sometimes it can work, but there are other times with some people it just doesn't. And worst case scenario, that person may stop even coming to you, and that's not because they don't want help, but they're thinking that it's getting worse with you. And so not every strategy will work with everybody, And we see that whether we're teaching, whether we're coaching, different strategies sometimes work with different people. And sometimes you have to figure out, what's the best approach there, 100%. To involve this person, to help them retake their own destiny in their hands, or grow, or whatever. So,
I spoke to, he was a good mentor, and he was telling me that when he started coaching, he learned about culture with coaching, because how he would talk to his the man athletes, it was different from the woman athletes. He thought, like, when he would talk to the women athletes, he realized that he needed to be approached differently. It was like knowing your audience, approaching differently. But it's also another thing that I learned from another mentor is the FFF, feel, felt, find. Hear what the person's saying, feel it, find it, and feel for it, and then how can you relate with it? Mm-hmm. So I think that's important too.
Yeah, and feel it, yes. Find, I would really emphasize that find,
Absolutely.
How do you want, like, discover, building that kind of partnership with the audience, or the players, or the employees, or whomever, it is that you're trying to relate to. Find out, and you all can negotiate how you want that relationship to go. And again, as you make certain things unfold, and of course, it's going to be context dependent. Some of those things, like there are there are workplaces or contexts where the culture is very, how shall we call it, authoritarian. Like if you go to basic training in the Marines, your CEO isn't going to come and say, "Hey, how you feel, man? You need no,
Get your ass
no, that's not. It's a different type of environment, But even then, even as they are administering the tough love and everything, they still have to find though, like how are my troops responding? Because at the end of the day, I need them to be ready. Because my life depends on them and their life depends on me. So I still have to engage in the finding, even though the process of doing that is not going to be quite the same thing as perhaps in a different context where the authoritarianism may not be quite as expected. Yeah. So context matters, but still finding is very important. Finding, are they ready? Are they ready to take on the challenge, the task, and everything? So you have a responsibility to train them, and to observe, because there are various ways of finding. You can simply observe.
Body language.
Yeah, you can observe the performance. You can ask, what's the deal? What's wrong? You can ask directly or indirectly, to other members on the team and so on. You can even seek help. You're the CEO, but you're like, okay, you within the team, I'm putting you in charge of that rookie or such and such. You can delegate. So I'm saying there are options.
Absolutely.
To deal with different things. It's just that sometimes people think it has to be one way every day, one time,
no.
And it's like, well, that may not work quite as well, for everyone. So
I would say you definitely have to be versatile.
Yeah.
So what would you say, how can organizations effectively communicate and build relationships with their stakeholders, both internally and externally?
Okay, that's a very good question. Very broad and also a bit complex. But so when we say organization depend on a multitude of stakeholders. Like when we use the term stakeholders, these are literally people who have a stake in the organization.
Investors.
That include not just investors. Investors, yes, but also employees. Employees are stakeholders in an organization. They depend on the organization. If the organization falls or goes bankrupt, they're impacted. If the organization is the products are poorly received, the customers are stakeholders. They are external stakeholders. They depend on our products. They depend, yes, we make products so that they consume. If we do a poor job, we could get lawsuits. We could get our image damaged, we can get, watchdog groups coming after us and so on. So there are a multitude of stakeholders that an organization has. Even the regulators, are we abiding by the rules of our industry? Are we abiding by the rules of the government? Are we paying our taxes appropriately? All these are different types of stakeholders. So employees are what we often refer to as internal stakeholders. And then you have a multitude of different other stakeholders, external, So sometimes it's the function of the media relations person within the organization, communicating or linking with the media, to help build the brand and the image of the organization. The PR officers, who are also doing that, the image consultant, the customer service rep, and those are kind of jobs that sometimes people who graduate from our program in communication, like in Orcom, those are some of the jobs that they often do. Customer service, customer relations, media relations, and even some of the HR functions within organization, in addition to a myriad of other types of jobs that they can get. But yeah, it is very important to build great relationships. Motivate your employee. We talked about voice earlier, employee participation, but also conduct campaign, to seek feedback from customers. You see a lot of organizations today, once you buy from them, you get a service from them. Sometimes you get the typical survey. Could we call you, 20 minutes or something? Whenever I call Spectrum or a number of other organizations, they'll sometimes text me or something. Like, could you take a survey? Because that data is important. Organizations, they want to know, like, how did we do? Now, some of them do it for what we call symbolic information processing, meaning they collect a bunch of data, but they don't really use it. But they want to make people feel like, oh yeah, we care about what you think, when in fact we don't. So it's just a way of making you, come and give us your complaint and everything. You give it and then we put it in the garbage. Sometimes bad organizations do that. But a good organization tries to be responsive to its environment, the customers and all the other external stakeholders. When there are issues that are reported to you, you need to respond. You need to adjust. If sometimes it's okay, maybe our product isn't up to the standards, what are we going to do about it? We have to think internally. And sometimes we even solicit feedback or input, depending on the kind of organization. Maybe you're a nonprofit and you're trying to help end homelessness. It would be a good idea to involve some of the homeless, in coming up with solutions, to the challenges that they are facing. You're not just coming there as the savior, with free ready-made solutions and so on, because those people have to own those solutions. You will depend on their cooperations for some of these solutions to work. So again, building great communicative partnership, great relationship with all these stakeholders is very, very important. And there are a variety of ways that you can do that, when you are implementing change efforts, whether in your organization or so, seeking to involving people, at different levels. Sometimes it can be, you can organize a town hall, people come and you talk to them. Again, depending on the kind of organization. Again,
Absolutely.
Different organizations have different types of stakeholders, and they seek different things regarding about their missions and so on and so forth. But involving people, being transparent about certain processes, transparency, good, providing adequate information, that helps to build some level of trust,
Absolutely.
that this person cares about. Maybe they truly want feedback rather than simply engaging in symbolic. We're doing it to show that we're doing it, to show that we care, when in fact we don't.
Just throwing it away.
Yeah.
That's egoness, I believe.
What?
I believe that's your ego taking over, because you think you got it all right, you think you got to figure it out. But I think constructive criticism is important. I use it all the time. I at first, I will get a little nervous about it, like, I don't need to hear it. But I know, it's especially with the people that I trust, that they're going to deliver a response that I need to hear. Maybe I don't want to hear it, but I need to hear it in order to improve. Yeah,
and that's a key word there, the people you trust. Even though we will say, even those you don't necessarily think, even when you don't think that they know exactly, because think about the people who sometimes engage in this symbolic information processing. Like, they believe that the people that are outside of this, they don't really understand how this works, so why should I have to listen to them? That's really the thing. It's not that I hate those people or I think that they're idiots, but it's like, none of those people walk in our shoes. They don't know what it takes to come up with an event and everything. So they'll say, oh, in the future, this is what you need to do. And you're like, whatever. You're like, you don't understand how this thing works. So I don't even have to listen to you. But the thing is, even if they don't fully understand, and which is normal, because they're not in your position, but there's still people who will have to engage with your event, consume your product, and so on. And it's important to take those concerns seriously and perhaps say something back, to say that, here are some challenges or some constraints that we are feeling. We have heard your complaints. we understand last time there weren't enough toilet during the concert and everything. Here are some things that we're trying to do about this. And if we are constrained about the toilet, then we'll say, okay, the next time when you come to this thing, I don't know, try to not drink so much. Because we can't have more than 12 toilets in the entire, or here's how we're going to, because you have to navigate within the challenges that are imposed to you, but you need to be clear to people about some of those things and what you're doing to improve, so that at least they know that,
absolutely,
at least this person is listening, and here are some things. Hopefully those are things that actually matter, and you have the choice of involving them into coming up with solutions. So
inviting them.
Yeah.
When I used to work at T-Mobile, shout out to T-Mobile, by the way, I still have T-Mobile. They had these two core principles. The fourth one was follow through, and the last one's connect. So build that relationship. Mm-hmm. So after you, whatever, sell them a phone or a line, you want to send them a message, hey, did everything work out? Yes, everything worked out. So now you're following through, right, with everything working out. But then you connect with them. Hey, next time come by the shop so we can show you our new products. We'll give you a discount, this and that. But that's also giving them a sense of, okay, now I can build a relationship. Now I could trust this person. Mm-hmm. And then they look for you.
Yeah, and when you have these kind of core principles, of course, you got to make sure that the people who work for you at every branch actually are following through, and that this is ingrained in their process, how they work with customers. Sometimes people have those slogans, we do this, we follow through, we would like to connect with you. But sometimes it's just talk, it doesn't necessarily reflect how you're actually treated. There are very few organizations who will come and say, oh, we're committed to bad service. We're committed to excellent service. But then when you get there, are they walking the walk, or is it all talk? Yeah. So that's the thing there. Your call is very important to us. We'll be there within a few minutes, and a few minutes transform into an hour and so on. Our call line is very busy now, but your call is very important. I mean, you understand that, I guess maybe a lot of people are calling, which sometimes might also be like, is it that your products are problematic, or there aren't enough people you hire to actually, but it doesn't always convey a great message when you...
I never thought about that. Like, are you yeah, that's true, problematic. Yeah.
Yeah, if there are so many people calling about, I've had some problems with a few organizations, and then you go and complain, and it's like, those people are annoyed, the way even you received, and it's like, yeah, but you see all the slogans, someone is smiling on the picture, and your experience is what we care about. It's most important, but it's like these people they do not follow through. Like, they did not make me feel that way, and but yeah.
I mean, and this is also a different field of organization, but when you look at the fast food chains, the main one that you always see where it's always full is Chick-fil-A, because they provide great customer service. They provide your needs. They ask you how your day's going, first of all. They always ask that. Once you get to the door, once you get to whatever the line, whoever you're talking to, they'll say, hey, how are you doing today? Which I think is very important, because they're already asking, how is your day? That's important for human interaction.
Yeah, and different people, will often respond to it differently.
The New Yorkers.
What?
The New Yorkers.
Yeah, the New Yorkers. Sometimes, I was one day in one of my classes, my organizational communication class. We talk about these kind of things, and yeah, some students were like, yeah, I don't really like that whole chit chat. I just need you to focus, and I was telling, yeah, people are different. They have different needs, and sometimes they're going through a different time, and it's like, I just want my chicken. Maybe they're in a bad mood that day, and there are times when I've gone to my bank and where it's like, I don't want to have any conversations about anything because right now I'm really feeling flooded. I need this money for something particular. It's like, how is your day? There's this. Oh, yeah, I'm trying.
Just get me out of here.
Yeah. It's usually when I'm going through really stressful and I'm like, I need to do this really quick. And so I'm going to participate to be nice to you, but not because it's actually helping me, So, but it's like, at this point, I'd rather if it was someone would just pass me through. And but, you get these... you want to be nice to the customers, and you talked about feel fine. Then there's the feel, is this person in the mood? Sometimes you'll say, how's your day? And they might not even respond and say, I'll get the number 1 and the number 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
Say, hey, you know what?
That's when you, as a communicator, you in charge, you got to know the audience and be like, absolutely, sir. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been a while. I haven't been to Chick-fil-A in a while. I'm not sure if there is that. I didn't know that. I didn't know it was so. This is the fast food that has the best customer service in your experience.
Yeah, it's always busy. It is always busy. Any Chick-fil-A you go to and drive by, it's always going to be busy because of the customer service. Absolutely.
Maybe you're going there at peak hours.
I always go to Whataburger. Because I love me Whataburger,
Okay.
But I would like to go to Chick-fil-A. It's just always packed. And I'm not going to wait in line,
Okay. Yeah, well, it's a fast food for a reason. So if you dare to wait and it's no longer fast, well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the last questions I would like to ask you before we end this podcast is, when it comes to other nonprofit organizations or organizations collaborating with other organizations, what are some of the challenges being faced?
Oh, there are a lot, anytime you build a partnership with, anytime your organization builds a partnership with another organization, there are all kinds of challenges that can be faced. Like, you have to handle conflict. Again, we're mutualizing. Yeah. Conflict, trust issues. Because when you build a partnership with someone, there's going to be disclosure of a lot of information. Do you trust that those people will behave appropriately when they have these type of information? Will they exhibit opportunistic behavior, take advantage of you? And it's the same. Think about when you get in a relationship with someone. There's some risk there. Does this person really care about me, or are they trying to take advantage of me? It's sort of in a similar way. It operates also at the organizational level. Mutualizing effort, deciding on how the collaborative effort is going to be managed. Is there someone who's going to take the lead, one organization, or are you distributing the task? Is there going to be some type of working group, made up of members of various organizations? Where are they going to meet? How is this going to unfold? How much participation do we have in the budget? Is it equal? Is it not? If it's not, why? Or if it is, why? All of those things have to be decided. When you get into a partnership, you have to think about all of those things. Who's going to get credit? When the resources come or the funding comes or there are successes, who gets the largest share of the credit? How it's the prestige allocated. And so all of those decisions have to be made. There has to be an understanding, a memorandum of understanding, maybe some collaborative agreements that are signed, to formalize the partnerships. But I do have to say that sometimes there are informal partnerships that organizations have. What is going to be the scope of the partnership? You need to decide that. Is it going to be, we will allow you to use some location within our organizations? Or is it simply going to be we exchange information and then we'll put together an event, That could be the extent of the partnership. Oh, we work with EPCC at UTEP. We work with EPCC to put the educational convention at in El Paso. Or it could be that, no, we co-offer some programs with EPCC where people can come. There are teachers from EPCC, teachers from UTEP, and we manage the program together, but it is housed at UTEP, or it is housed at EPCC, or it is a separate building from either of us. So again, each collaboration or partnership is different, and we need to decide what exactly is the partnership about. Is it a mutualization of effort? Is it total integration, or is it just, no, it's some of our services that we're putting together, or is it just we have some event or a few events during the year that we work together on? So depending on the partnerships and what people want to make of it, the nature of the partnership is going to be different, and that means the nature of the challenges are going to be different. But generally, the higher the stakes,
Yeah.
the bigger the challenges, the more the challenges.
High risk, high reward.
Yeah, high risk. High risk, not necessarily high reward, potential for high reward, but also potential for tremendous failures, And some organizations have felt that. I have gone to, when I was doing my dissertation, I went to interview some leaders of organizations who were like, yeah, we worked with that organization a couple of times in the past, and I do not look forward to ever doing that again. Because they had such a terrible time, a terrible experience collaborating with these folks. And I was like, but also you said you were able to achieve the goals of the collaboration. It's like, yeah, we met our partnership goals. But again, we have to think, achieving the goals is just one part of deciding whether a collaboration went well. There's also the experience, So you can play with someone, you all hate each other, you win, and you're like, you know what? Even though we're going to win the Champions League, like, I want out of here because I just cannot continue to work with this person because there's so many headaches, so much stress, there's a lot of...
Shaq and Kobe.
Exactly, and you saw how that went out. They won, and then at some point one was like, hey, get me out of here. I don't want to continue to do this. I want to go elsewhere, sometimes for even less money. These things happen, or sometimes people get the ego. It was said, like, when Neymar left Barcelona, that he wanted to go to a team where he would be the dog, the top guy. That's why he went to PSG, because Messi was the
top guy.
Which is legitimate, but again, if you feel that, that this is, and the same thing with organizations, sometimes, even when the goals are achieved, which is not always the case, sometimes people are like, it was a war to work with these people, They were always stingy with information. They were very manipulative. There was this. Sometimes they were not punctual. The representative from these folks, they were always not disclosing adequate information to us. We feel like we put in more resources into this thing than we originally budgeted or intended to put. They didn't follow through on some of the things that they owed us. But yeah, we managed to achieve our goals or whatever, but we came away from that thing and said, you know what, never again are we going to work with these folks. And when I think of effective partnerships, one thing I realized when I was doing my literature review, like when I was examining other people's study, is they tended to focus a lot on goal achievement. And I was like, goal achievement is only one aspect of an effective collaboration. I think
Absolutely.
The process also has to be effective. Like, how satisfied are you with the process? If I work with you and we end up hating each other's guts and deciding I never want to work with Jorge again, even when we achieve our goals, the fact that I would not consider that a truly successful collaboration, because in my mind, I thought if the collaboration was truly successful, it should invite us to say, hey, we could do more things in the future.
Do more damage.
If we get out of a collaboration and we're like, hey, I never want to see this person, or I never want to work with them again, then something is not right there. So as I was writing and say, you know what, I not only want to measure if they achieve their goals, because you're collaborating to achieve something. So yes, a marker of effectiveness is, did you achieve that thing? But another marker is also, was the process satisfactory, the process of doing that? Because if there's going to be a repeat collaboration, or if there's going to be a repeat of a customer coming back, it's because they're happy with the kind of service, the kind of experience that you're providing. So those are some things that I really wanted to examine, and it's talking with these people that helped me craft the instrument that I wanted to use in my thesis. That I can't just focus on goal achievement. I'm going to collect data on goal achievement, but I also want to collect data on how they felt about the experience, and is this something that you would want to do again? And you'd be surprised at how many, like, there's bad blood that was created between certain organizations. Like, we don't ever want to work with them if we ever have a choice, because sometimes nonprofit don't always have, sometimes partnerships are mandated to them.
But, I mean, I will say conflict is important. Not severe conflict, but I think conflict is important, because it's to see, all right, are we in this together, or are we not in this together? Mm-hmm. Because that's when you get to see, like, now we can solve things together. That's the cool thing, because sometimes when you get in conflict with each other, one wants out. So it's like, then we weren't in this together. I think that's when you need to resolve that issue, and if that resolution works, then you begin to have a better trust with each other. Yeah, conflict
can be a really good thing, for a partnership, but it is nonetheless a challenge that you have to handle. And 100%. So you talked about, we can handle conflict constructively, but it can also take a destructive turn. It all depends, again, on how you handle it. And oftentimes when you see there's these bad bloods, it means that the conflict was not properly handled. It was not handled constructively, and it became destructive. If a conflict results in more antagonism, more animosity, more dislike among the parties in the conflict or in the relationship, then we generally characterize that conflict as a destructive conflict. And this is when things get worse and worse and worse, and you get the proverbial, we need to separate irreconcilable differences. We cannot stand each other. We just have to go our separate ways, unless we are mandated to do otherwise. Sometimes some organizations are, we'll write this together because we do have a job to do. We have to preserve our reputation and so on. But never again, like next year or the year after, we don't ever want to work with these people again. And you get these kind of things. And then there are sometimes turf wars, where a nonprofit feels like, no, this is our domain. This is where we work. So if you're coming to work there, you should have contacted us first. We think that it's wrong for you to just come, and it's like, wait, is this like a gang thing? It's like, but these kind of turf, but sometimes people feel very particular about a turf. It's like, when people were suffering here, we were doing the work. Nobody came to help us. We've successfully advocated for the voice. Now that we're getting funding, usually funding attracts, a lot of people who want a piece of the proverbial pie. And now folks are coming, the federal government has decided to invest in, asbestos cleaning or homelessness funding efforts in El Paso. Suddenly, organizations that were never involved in homelessness are now crafting their mission statements. They're now developing programs, which typically should be a good thing for the homeless, or for the stakeholders in the problem domain. But those that have been there since day one, those that are sometimes the oldest, may feel that, no, this is our turf. And it will be unfair for you all who were not here from the beginning, to come and now feel like you gotta have a piece of the pie, and so there are these kind of turf wars sometimes that occur. Organizations sometimes have that. So there are a lot of different challenges, that can be incurred, that may have to be dealt with when you are, managing a collaboration, depending on the type of collaboration or partnership that it is.
If you ask me, communication's a cure.
Communication is the cure. It can be. I often tell my students, especially when we talk about conflict, communication is the vehicle for the productive management of conflict, but it is also the vehicle for the destructive management of conflict. Sometimes we use communication to exacerbate conflict. We can use communication to encourage or discourage, to uplift or to insult. When you insult someone, it is a form of communication. Sometimes people communicate to you in order to rile you up. That's their goal. Maybe if you think on a soccer field or a basketball, like we say trash talk. I'll come and trash talk you because I want to knock you off your game.
That is true.
Yeah. Sometimes communication isn't necessarily about building bridges. It can be about destroying them.
That is true.
So again, it all depends what kind of communication and how it is deployed, to address the particular need of the situation. I often give this example to my student when we talk about, the trash talk. I remember, I don't know if you follow basketball, there was a game between the Celtics and I think New York. Kevin Garnett was still playing for the Celtics.
Love that game.
Kevin Garnett is notorious for his trash talk and mean. Yeah, he had one time, I think I'd heard, he wished Happy Mother's Day to Tim Duncan, knowing full well that Tim Duncan's mother had passed, and it was a way like before starting the game. And he had said to Carmelo Anthony that your wife tastes like Honey Nut Cheerios. At least that's what
I read too. Yeah.
And at the time, I think they were going through some rough patches in their relationship. There were accusations of cheating and whatnot. So you're coming to play with someone and they say that to you, knowing that,
psychological.
That was like, I'm trying to knock you off your game. This kind of person isn't there for your benefit. They're using all kind of dirty tricks to put you down, and if you give in, if you're riled by this, how is that going to affect you, and I think it didn't affect Carmelo Anthony particularly well that night. I don't remember what the score, but maybe Boston won. But the thing is, again, communication can be used for these kind of things. Communication can be used to include or to exclude. You come in, hey, Jorge, and everything, but when she or they come in, we don't say anything. We silence, we exclude you. When we invite people, we don't invite you. There are ways to communicate exclusion to people. But we don't want you here. If you go to an organization, sometimes you feel like, I work with these people, but I get the sense that they don't want me there. How do they communicate that to you? That's also how communication is deployed. That sometimes it's, hey, nobody says hi to you. People don't invite you. They don't share information with you. They're never encouraging you. You just don't feel like I belong here. You just don't feel like these people really want me there, and they're communicating that to me by the things that they are doing. So,
actions,
sometimes people symbolically exclude you, and they use communication to do that. So, again, it's like communication is great, and I love to study it, but I also am fully aware of not all communication is great. Depending on the need, depending on the goals, depending on the objectives.
It's definitely bruising.
So it has the potential to build, to create, but it also has the potential to destroy, to antagonize. And sometimes that's the goal. When someone goes and they want to bully you, yeah, they can bully you physically, but also psychologically through their communication. You know, they're always insulting you. They're always attacking you, berating you, and so on. And that's what contributes to creating a toxic culture. How is a toxic culture created? Through toxic communication.
That's a fact.
Yeah. Toxic communication is communication. So we will never just say to people, yeah, you all need to communicate. Okay, how? What exactly should we do? This is the okay, let's get into some of the specific, whether in a couple, in an organization, in a team, and whatnot. All of these things matter, you know, the how, you know. Because sometimes people, we communicate and everything. Tell us a little bit more. How do you communicate? I've told her or I've told him numerous times and everything. Okay, what did you say? Are you sure that you all understand each other? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the problem. That's the problem.
You know, so again, is it clear? Is it accurate? Is it timely? You know, especially in the context of work, you know, is your communication helpful to the other person in achieving whatever goals you both hold dear? Or is it not?
Is it complete?
Yeah. And sometimes, you know, again, sometimes people communicate because, and they remain ambiguous, and that's a goal. Sometimes people remain, strategic ambiguity is a concept that we often talk about in communication. Sometimes when politicians or people are dealing with a variety of publics, again, and they're like, I'm going to come up with a concept to pacify everyone, you know, and people can all have their personal definition of what that means. They'll come up with a very strategically ambiguous statement that everyone can interpret it their own way, and that's the goal. Because when you ask them to clarify it, no, we will not clarify it we will leave it at that, you know, because we're not interested in getting into the detail and dispelling this interpretation as opposed to that one and so on. So sometimes, the goal of communication isn't always to be clear. People can choose to remain strategically ambiguous, and that can actually, believe it or not, have some positive effect. You know, people get elected and there are a bunch of people who think different things about them. You know, they achieve their goals. You know, people think, they're for the people, they're for the corporation, therefore, whatever you
perspective.
You know, you know, as long as I get your vote, you know, I'm good with that. So communication is a pretty powerful tool, you know. Well, that's part of why I'm always fascinated, you know, studying it. You know, that's why I do what I do.
And that's why I chose you as my first guest. I mean, you broke down communication very well, not just in organizational, but how you can transition that to personal, teamwork, in all sorts of fields. So
I specialize in organizational communication, but I talk with a lot of colleagues, you know. And I read a lot in other fields. You know, it's not to get a tunnel view. I'm curious about communication in a variety of areas. You know, so
I'm excited. Whenever you're done with that research on the FIFA World Cup and soccer, we have to get on board on the podcast again because I'm very excited for that.
When we're done, depending on what we find and everything, you know, I'd be happy to share that. Hopefully, we can publish it. You know, by next year. We still have to finish the data collection. So my friend is the one who's harvesting the data. You know, this is a colleague who's at the University of Kentucky. You know, we went to, we did our doctorate together at Illinois.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, so, these are lasting relationships that we have with some people in the field, you know, so that is great.
That's a great way to connect.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dr. Atouba, for coming onto the podcast. You're a master of your craft of communications, so thank you for that. I greatly appreciate it.
I try. Thank you for having me. It's always great to talk about communication. It feels weird. You made me feel comfortable. It feels weird sometimes to talk about one's work, even though I'm excited. Good luck on this podcast. I like the idea of it, enriching the lives of people with knowledge about communication, and especially better communication to avoid, and then things to do more of, and that's what we're all doing, whether in the classroom or outside the classroom, as in this particular venue. So
absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you.